on the drift Tacoma today. It's been a little while. We haven't had time to necessarily work on the drift Tacoma. And if you've got a project at home that you're working on, then you know just as well as I do while you're doing other things, you're thinking of that project. Sorry y'all, but last week we had the snow plow. The week before that one we had rims. We had the remodel on the garage. Just my full-time job, 3 kids and a wife. Sometimes I just ain't got time to stay on that drift Tacoma. And that's where my mind has been at, and that's what we're going to do today. So with that being said, today we're going to cover the installation of our fuel cell, how our fuel cell needs to sit, where it wants to sit, not necessarily where it wants to sit, but how I want it to sit, and then what I'm going to do as far as the install of the fuel cell. Now, there's some things that you need to be covered. These mats, you can get at Harbor Freight. They're relatively cheap. They're foam mats for like gyms, in front of your workbench, to ease back pain, things like that. I'm going to use these mats because we used to have a gym, and I'm going to use these mats for under the fuel cell and under the straps. With that being said, when you're installing a fuel cell, if your fuel cell is aluminum, you're going to need to have something between your strap and your fuel cell because aluminum likes to crack. If it gets jostled around, jerked around, or too much vibration, they will crack. They will split a weld seam. They develop problems, trust me. Now, if you're running a composite fuel cell, it's not as bad. You can beat them things around pretty good, not have any worries, but you still want to have a good solid mount system. And I recommend having something under your strapping anyway. It's good, it protects it, it doesn't mar it up, you don't have vibration mars, you don't have things to worry about where it'll eventually eat into your tank. If you're running a steel fuel cell, which are pretty rare, hell, you can beat the crap out of them things, you ain't gonna have any problems. So, let's get into it, let's do what we do. This here is a lid off of my US General 3-drawer toolbox that used to be back here. I took it to work, I'm using it as a service cart, and it was a pain in the ass because anytime I needed to move it from point A to point B or take it around a vehicle, it didn't matter how high I had that vehicle up on the lift, I had to put this lid down. And I was staring at it one day while doing some brakes on a car, and I was like, that would be perfect for holding my fuel cell. And it's a pain in the ass, and it drives me nuts. So I bastardized it by taking it off my service cart. We're going to use this as our tray to hold our fuel cell. It's got nice brakes on it already, which are going to keep it from wanting to bend and twist too much. It's got the ability to slide that fuel cell into a corner. Nonetheless, I'll explain all that here in a little bit. So last night I was goofing around with ideas for strapping, and I didn't want to use steel, I wanted to use aluminum. So here is one of my aluminum straps I did. I was trying 1/2-inch foam. Actually, it's an 1-inch thick foam that can be compressed down to 1/2 inch. I didn't like that idea, so this is the new plan I came up with today, and I'm going to show you all what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, and then that gives you guys the ability to come up with an own idea, use something I'm doing towards your ideas, and use this as a template or a way to go, a path. So, drift Tacoma today. Thank the Lord, it's been a little while. So let's do what we do and do our best. This is that same piece of metal. That piece of metal off my toolbox. This is the location in which I want my fuel cell to sit. The reason I want my fuel cell here is I'm trying to keep my weight centered in the middle of the vehicle. I've already shortened the frame 2 inches and I've cut off the rest of the frame. No beds going on this vehicle, this drift truck. This is going to have, caging, all kinds of fun stuff, a wing. But this is where I want my fuel cell to sit. And the reason I want my fuel cell to sit here is it keeps the weight directly in the center and I'm pushing it back as far as I can get it. Originally the tank sat here, which wouldn't have worked with my 4-link suspension anyway. So let's bring it up a little higher. Let's move it around. I've already got my fuel cell, which is 29.5 inches long, 1 foot high by 1 foot wide. It's perfect. This little tray will be good for what I want to do. I'm thinking this tray sits right there. So Is that tray adequate for the way it's sitting, for what we need to do? It's got a little bit of a bend here. This side can't bend because of this brake that's on this side, but this side's got a little bit of like a wobble to it. So one of the things we need to cover today is putting a piece of metal in between here so this has something to sit on. So it can be solid. I don't have to worry about it bending and flexing, and I sure in the crap don't want to be driving down the road cruising, say power tour to Florida. I don't want to have to hear this thing rattling the whole damn time I'm traveling. Rattling and traveling. Nah, it doesn't work for me. But that's where it's going to sit. I'm a one-man show, you all, so you got to deal with me not being able to have anybody help me. That's where the fuel cell is going to go. Okay, so I was talking about removing parts of this plate so it can look cleaner and look, more presentable, and I want you to be able to see more of this four-link. But something you got to look forward. Sometimes on your projects, you got to stop and think to yourself, where is this going to end? How is this going to look? And what's it going to do? Kind of like the who, what, where, and when you were in school. If you went to school. I don't remember much of it. So, I want to put post filter, fuel pump, pre-filter. Pre-filter is catching everything coming out of the tank at 100 micron. Fuel filter is going to push pressure to the fuel regulator underneath the hood. Post filter is picking up anything 30 micron. Sorry, I said that all backwards. 30 micron pre-filter, fuel pump, 100 micron post filter. Now, I want to have room for all my AN fittings, all my hosing, everything right here on this tray. So if I break this corner, like I was explaining to you all, on a 45 to this corner here, giving it, a nice pretty look, it looks good, but am I going to have room for everything? Where if I could slide this back and put a filter there, here, now I can break off the top of this tank, straight back, 90 down, 90 over, 90 into the filter, straight piece into the fuel pump, straight piece into the secondary filter, and then 90 off, 90 down, and grab onto my fuel lines, which are sitting right here. That's a lot cleaner look. So do I necessarily need to break this corner? Not really. Do I want to? I sure do. But I'm not going to because it looks a lot better. But what I do need to do is, because we're going to be supporting a lot of weight right here, we do not want any flex. There's flex right here. All this is going to be jostling around, doing this, and then traveling down the road, vibrating. I don't want to do all that. So, first steps first, I mark the line here, and I know I go here. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and weld me in a piece of square that goes between these two. That way this has something to sit on. It can sit and be solid. It can be mounted down tight. I don't have to worry about vibration. So that's the first step of our afternoon. This over here has that brake on this back side, which is going to keep it from flexing. It can't bend that vertical. So let's move forward. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is figure out the distance between this frame brace, fuel cell holder, it functions as both. And this frame brace, fuel cell holder, it functions as both. I'm going to figure out my distance. I want to weld in a piece of metal that is 2 foot and 1/8 between those two. Like I was saying, that'll give this so it can't flex. This brake on this side's a 90. It can't flex here. That'll be able to sit there. We can put that whole tray in. I think I want to put the tray in with rib nuts instead of welding it in place in case this tray ever needs to come back out. Replacement, rust, whatever the issue may be, I can get it back out of there. So let's go ahead and find us a piece and cut it. What I have here is square tubing. You guys, this is just some thin 3/4 inch wide by 3 foot long tubing I picked up at Lowe's for another project that I had. You could go bigger, but remember weight is an issue with this. I want to keep weight down as low as I can. So this is some really thin wall. It's pretty strong. For what we need it to do, it's not going to be affected by any weight or any twisting. I'm going to cut it. I've marked it at 2 foot and 1/8. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Like always, I'm not going to show you cutting show you all me cutting a piece of metal. So this piece here that I was just talking about will fit in right here. I wanted it to be a tight fit, which is good. That's how this is. If need be, we can take a little off of it. That'll give this the ability to sit in here. So now what I'm going to do is clean all this up, clean this frame up a little bit so I can go ahead and weld this piece in place. Y'all, my frame is a little rusty because when I did the snowplow job, I had to push this outside. I didn't have enough room in the garage for both, and it rained. You know, it's okay. As long as I clean everything really, really well before I go and spray everything, I have nothing to worry about. I'm going to bed line this whole frame with like a Raptor liner or a bed liner, or a cheaper version of that, one of the two. I don't want it necessarily to be perfect, pretty, and all that fun stuff. I just want it to be clean. I want it to look clean. I want to be able to spray it off with a pressure washer and move on about my business. So I'm going to go ahead and put this piece in place, and then I'll explain to you why I put this piece in place. But that's where she goes, and that's what we're doing. A little bit of a disclaimer. While using these wire brushes, you guys, they throw wires all over the place. And I didn't think I'd need to stop and say something to somebody about it. But these are dangerous, like super damn dangerous. You can't tell because I have a hand tattoo, but I had one just like this one eat all the way up into here, ate my tendons and stuff. It was pretty bad. And then my wife, if I knew how to insert a picture into a video, I would insert a picture. She'd probably kill me if I did. But she actually had a wire come off of something I was working on across the room, and she was turned the opposite direction. It hit the window, bounced off, and it hit her in the eye. It didn't hit her in the eyeball. It actually hit her below the eyeball in the eyelid, the lower eyelid. And she had a black eye. I'm not playing with you all, for 3 months. It was insane. And it happened a month before Christmas, which was just awesome. And then, of course, you get all the comments and jokes and everything. Comments were ridiculous, y'all. So, a little bit of a disclaimer. Be safe with these. Pay attention to what you're doing. And if you notice, like my grinder, this rotates this direction. If you're working on something and you're pulling, like if you lay it flat, it wants to kind of jitterbug all around. Where if you hold it on a little bit of an angle towards the rotation towards you, it'll want to kind of feed. And it's a lot easier where if you hold it on the opposite side where it's pushing, it wants to kick. And it's a lot easier to grab yourself. No loose clothing. That's kind of one of the reasons I wear overalls, or if you watch, I try to stay a little bit, you know, on the less loose clothing. Every now and then you will see me in a hoodie. And that's just because I'm cold. I don't have an option. And I could put my hoodie underneath my overalls, but off camera, if I'm doing something where I'm using this, I take my sweatshirt off. I've had numerous accidents with these, and these little a-holes here, I have messed myself up. I actually don't have any feeling on the whole tip of this finger from where a cutoff blade got to me before I even knew it. I was almost all the way into my finger. I know there's a lot of people out there who are going to say, how in the hell did you almost cut off your whole finger? It was a weird situation. I didn't even realize I was cutting my finger. So, a little bit of a disclaimer. Be careful. Okay. With the magic of video editing, that piece is now in. I went ahead and welded all the way around, broke the tops off with the flat disc, you know, just so that way this plate can sit flat and I don't have anything bumping it up. So now we can slide it into place, figure out where we want it, good placement. Let's make sure that we're even up front, which we are definitely not. There. Good placement all the way around. Now, let's figure out where we want to put these rib nuts. I would like to have one dead center of this frame here, and dead center of that frame over there. That's pretty square. It's pretty good where it belongs. I like it. So, half of 2 foot is 1 foot. We had 2 foot 8 from between 2 to 2, so let's go 1 foot 16. 16. So I have 1 foot and a 16th right here. That's where one's gonna go. I know that this piece I have is 3/4 of an inch wide. So now I'm gonna make it 3/8. So I need to have a spot right there to put a bolt. I know my frame's 2 inches, so half of 2 is 1. We'll mark 1. And then I want to come in about an inch. So let's go inch. We're going to put 1 here. What I'm going to do is go ahead and mark the rest, and then I'll drill them out. Don't think y'all need to show. I don't think y'all need to see me show you how to mark a bunch of X's on a plate. If you need more information, just leave a comment. Okay, something that I do want to cover though real quick is if you're having a hard time keeping a drill bit from walking around. Basically, that's when you're drilling a piece of metal or something, the drill bit wants to pull left, right, up, down, basically away from your center or your X. Find yourself a bolt, a punch, anything that you can sharpen down on a grinder or a file if you really have to, and put a point on the end of it. If you put a point on the end of it, you can find your X. To the center of the X, I like to put a piece of cardboard underneath whatever I'm hitting. That way I have a little bit of give and give her a hit. That gives the point of the drill somewhere to stay. It won't walk away. It'll stay right in the center of that point. That way you can drill a nice clean hole. Just a quick tip, and hit every single one of the centers of my X's with my punch, giving me a dent to stay in with my drill bit. Another thing that I like to do is my final drill bit size is going to be this big. But what I like to do is start off with something smaller, just a little bit smaller than the total size of my punch. And the reason I do that is so now when I drill these holes, I can take it back over to my frame where I want to install it or anything that you're installing it to. And now I'll put my punch in that hole that I'm going to drill, and it can't walk left and right. It can't move anywhere off center, and I don't have to find center or hope I'm in the center. Now, I just put the punch in the hole, the tiny hole keeps it centered, I hit it with a hammer again, and now I have the center of the hole. And then when I come back with my bigger drill bit and drill this hole, I have the center already on my frame. It's just a little easier that way. Instead of making a big hole here, trying to find the center, and then you go to bolt it down and you're off a little bit. You know, keeping things beautiful, it's an art, really. So now, I've drilled through the first layer, my plate, my panel, whatever I want to use to hold my fuel cell, or whatever project that you're working on. What I want to do now is mark the steel underneath for my plates. Remember, like I was saying, I used a drill bit just a little larger than the actual diameter of the tip of my punch. And the reason I did that is now I don't have to find center. I can just go ahead and hit that with a hammer, and that can't move left or right. It's the same thing all the way around. So, put your piece in place and make sure it's in your final resting place and where you want it. It's sitting good, everything looks good. Go through and punch it. Now, when I remove it out of the way, set that aside for a second, you probably can't see it, but I have just the tiniest marks. Those little marks are going to tell me where to hit it with my punch my second time, leaving me dead center of what I needed. Make sense? So now, I come back, I find the same spot, I hit it again. Come back, find the same spot, and hit it again. Just repeat the process a couple times, and there you go. It's a lot easier that way, folks. Now I know I'm in the center of every one of those marks that I wanted. And definitely, that's what we wanted. There. Now all 5 of them have been marked. Next step. I change your all's battery, and then drill these holes, and I have to get out the rib gun. This is a rib nut tool. This is a rib nut. So, these are the screws that I'm going to use. They're a little bigger than I wanted to use, but it's what I have in stock. So, you screw this into here like this. The plate will be sandwiched in between, and this piece will stay inside the frame. What we need to do is find a corresponding rib nut tool for this one. If I was a betting man, I'd say it's an M8. Just a betting man? Not really. I don't like to bet. I just know my thread count. Okay. Take my rib nut tool. You can order one of these off Amazon. You can get them in a couple different places. What we're going to do is find a drill bit a little bit larger than this piece right here. Not much. If you have to tap that thing into the hole, you are way better off. Let me tell you. Okay, so this drill bit right here is a 7/16. That means this hole is going to be 7/16. We're going to put this piece down in that hole. I'm having some complications this morning. There we go. So I'll screw it into my rib gun, the actual fitting itself. I'll install my alignment tool that helps keep this thing centered. Okay, to show you what this does, say you drill a hole in the metal. This goes inside the hole. As I squeeze this piece here, see how it acts like a rivet? It'll sandwich the metal between the top sandwich and the bottom sandwich, wedging it in place. Now I have a spot that I can bolt things to. So like I said, first step is to go back to the frame or whatever piece that you're working on and go ahead and make your holes this corresponding size to whatever rib nut you're using. If you would like to purchase one of these, Amazon and now Harbor Freight carries them. Harbor Freight also carries the collets. So that way you can get into them, or the rivets, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to go make the holes bigger, and then I'll show you guys me installing a couple of them, and then we'll put the plate in place. Okay. So I've drilled out my corresponding holes to fit my rib nut pieces. Remember I was explaining, these all sit in here like this. When we get done, those all will stay there and won't move. Something that's not necessary, but I like to do it. I'm sure an old timer out there is going to tell me I'm dumb and I don't have to do it, but it's okay. I don't care. I like to take just a little tiny bit of RTV, just a tiny bit, and put a little bit of RTV on each one of these before I set them in the hole. The reason I like to do this is it keeps that new metal that I just cut open, right? Because I just went through with a drill bit and ripped open the new surface. What that's going to do is allow oxidization to happen, which is rust. I don't want rust. I don't want these to get bad to a point where they're going to rust out 6, 10 months, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now, this project will be garage kept, so it's not like rusting is going to be a massive issue, but I just don't want to have to deal with it. And this is something that I do on every one of them when I do it. So, let me show you why I do it this way. Take your rib nut gun, open it up. Take your rib nut, screw it down on top, all the way down. So, I'm going to remove this one just so you guys can have a good view. Well, maybe it's better over here. Yeah, it'll be a little better over here. Put your rib nut in the hole and squeeze. Now this is the part that's kind of important. You do not want to torque the hell out of this thing and squeeze as hard as you possibly can. You will rip the threads. It will happen. And then you have to drill it out and do it again. There we go. So now we're going to screw our fuel or our plate down for our fuel cell. No fuss, no muss. And it looks good. I didn't have to weld it in place. I didn't have to mess around with anything. And even better, every single one of these lines up. And there we go. All my screw holes line up. Everything's going together like it should. She's removable. It's exactly how we wanted it. No fuss, no fighting, and a lot of that's due to the way we did those screw holes. If you do a small bit, just a little bigger than the size of your punch, that gives you the ability to have perfect markings where your screw holes go. So now, let's move on to the next step. Okay, so here's that same foam that I showed you earlier. They're like the workout mats or whatever you can get from Harbor Freight, blah, blah, blah. I've already cut them. My fuel cell happens to be 12 inches by 29.5, so I made this 30 by 13. Give me a little bit of wiggle room. I like it that way. But the big majority of the reason that we're using these is because, like I said, aluminum fuel cells will crack. They will. I wanted to cover up that screw that's right there. And I want to be able to cover up that screw that's right there. So that fuel cell, damn, that word is hard right now. That fuel cell isn't sitting on those. Now it's got something to work in between. So let me get the fuel cell. It doesn't matter how I put it on there, if I go that direction or not, it'll probably be this way, so that way I can run my plumbing down and out. But, there we go. Now we got a nice neat plate for it to sit on, all that fun stuff. Let's figure out putting a strap around this. Okay, I've moved you back here to hopefully give you a little bit better of a visual of what we need to do. Our strap needs to attach this piece of metal that's down here. I know you probably can't see it. It needs to come up, go across, back down, and has to have two ears sticking off so we can at least get a bolt and a bolt to hold it down to the frame. We'll use the same process that we just did. We'll tap, put rib nuts inside this frame to hold it down all the way around. Because I have more of this foam, I want to use this as my base between my fuel cell and my strap. Yes, this is floor divider for like in between where carpet would meet linoleum, door strips, whatever you want to call it. Yes, that is what it is. There's a reason I'm using it. I think that it looks way cooler than just a standard piece of aluminum. And I had two, I ruined one yesterday. That's what we're shooting for though, is a sandwich of the strap and that piece. That way this is all solid, mounted on something soft, it's not going to get ruined in the weather, and it looks very functional. Okay, so the material that we're using underneath our straps is 7/16 thick. We know, in my case, that this fuel cell is exactly 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot. But you can't forget that whatever material you're using for between your straps and your fuel cell, you have to add that to your measurement. So on the sides, you'll have 1 foot plus 7/16 plus 7/16. And then you'll have 1 foot plus 7/16 plus 7/16 for the top and bottom because I have it underneath. What we're going to do is we're going to bend a piece of metal that'll have a 2.5 inch ear to attach to the frame. It'll come up 12 plus 7/16 plus 7/16, bend 90 degrees, come across the top of the tank, and then accept 7/16 plus 7/16, giving us this piece of metal shaped to fit right over it and then screw to the frame. Bolt to the frame in our case. So let me move you over to the whiteboard because I think that'll be a little easier for you to show, for me to show what we're doing. Okay, over here at the whiteboard. We need to make something to hold down that fuel cell. This is what we want it to look like. We want to do something here, right? Say this is the frame of the vehicle. We want to do something that comes up, over, back down, and over again. That way we can have a bolt here to hold everything down. This on the inside is where the fuel cell will sit. This is where the foam will be. So remember, my fuel cell is exactly 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. That foam is 7/16 thick. 7/16 plus 7/16 is 7/8. So we need to add 7/8 to our measurement. We could go 1 foot and then 1 foot and 1 foot, and then it won't fit. It'll be too tight. You won't be able to screw it down, and you'll have to do it again. So in my case, I need to do this whole run, and this whole run at 12 and 7/8. 12, 7/8, 12, 7/8, giving us the ability to encapsulate all the way around that fuel cell and then do bolts at the bottom side. We'll repeat the process for the rib nuts for these two pieces on the bottom side attaching to the frame. Okay, you could use steel for this. I don't really want to in my particular case. I kind of want to use aluminum because it'll look better. You don't have to use anything majorly thick. This piece of aluminum itself, if we hit it with our gauge, is 14 gauge thick. The way this is going to be is one piece, so therefore it'll be able to handle the stress, and there's going to be two of them in its place. So we don't really need to worry about it being stressed all the way out. I've already gone over to my frame and measured how much of a distance that I want as my ears. The ears are the pieces that are going to attach to the frame. So if this is frame, this will be the ear where we'll have two bolts holding it down. I've already figured out that I want a 2.5 inch piece. So I'm going to go with my tape measure and mark out 2.5. Okay? And then I know that I have to come up 12 and 7/8. I like to lay out my tape measure this way. That way I can get it closer to my work. That way I know my lines are straighter. So I have 2.5 marked here. I'll bring my tape up to my 2.5 mark. Yes, you can do the math and add it. If you want to, do it that way. I like doing it this way. It takes out my mistakes. Now, I'm going to go to my 1 foot and then go 7/8. So I have 7/8, 12 and 7/8. And then I'm going to go another 12 and 7/8. And then one more 12 and 7/8. So you have your tab, up, across, down. And you'll see what I'm talking about. And then we're going to go one more 2.5. This is the part where you need to be a little bit more precise. Okay, over here at the vise, to make this bin nice, we know that this is a tab, this is up, this is across the tank, this is back down the tank, and this is another tab to the frame. I don't know if you saw all that, but I think I got a little off camera. When you're bending this, you could use a regular hammer, but in my case, I'm bending aluminum, so if I hit it with this hammer, I'm gonna mar all this up and leave hammer marks everywhere. I don't want that. I'm gonna use soft side, hard side. Red is soft, green is a little bit harder. I found that when using aluminum, that green gives you a nice clean hit, and you usually only have to hit it once. I'm gonna put this in the vise, and I'm gonna make me a tab. My first bend will be towards me, because this is my tab. I will line my vise up with my mark, and then the next thing I wanna do is take my square, put it on my vise, and make sure that my piece is straight. The reason I'm doing that is so that way my bend isn't on an angle. So there is straight up and down with my square. Heater kicked on. With the heater kicking on, I had to stop. Okay, my piece is square. It's square to my vise. That's good. This piece that I have in here is at 2.5 inch. I know I want to make this tab this way and then up. So I need to make a 90. If you screw up here, it's not a big issue. It's big on the next one though. So I'm going to go ahead and fold it over, and then I'm going to give it a love tap. So there's my first bend. There we go. Nice, clean. I didn't heat it and stress the metal any. Now, my next one. I need to build a box. So I'm going to line it up with my mark that I put in it. I'm going to tighten it down a little bit, not too tight. Come back, make sure for square. I'm tight here, loose here. I need to bring it over a little. Now she's square in my vise. Bend it over. Love tap. My next one. Building a box. Keep that in mind, you're building a box. It's easy to get screwed up. This isn't that hard to get screwed up because it's not a bunch of compounds, but I have definitely lost myself on a break before. It's not hard. I'm gonna tighten it up. I'm square in my vise. I'm gonna bend it over. I'm gonna give it a love tap. Notice I'm not leaving any hammer marks. That's good. I want it to be a clean look. Now, this last one is another tab to go back towards me. So, I'm gonna put it in my vise, on my line. Remember, your first tighten, don't tighten it too much. Square, there we go. Bend it over, give it a tap. Now, I have my square to hold my fuel cell. Nice clean looking strap to hold all my foam, everything in place. Okay, so I have a piece of foam on the bottom. I'm going to use this as my spacing to see if I did it correctly. This will sit nice and neat over the top of this with foam on the in-between. It'll attach to my frame in 2 spots. Now, I have foam on this side that I need to cut out once I figure out where I want it. But now, I'm tight there, I'll be tight on my edges, and on the bottom side. So that's bent correctly. It'll look good, it'll function, and everything will be in place, holding this nice and tight. Some little things that we can do. So this edge right here, you could leave it like that, but that doesn't look exactly professional, and in my opinion, I'd like it to look a little cleaner. Find something with a little bit of a radius, match up your edges, and then trace it. Take your grinder with a flat disc, or even your bench grinder will work. Trace that edge, and then round that off, giving that a good professional look. It's easy things like that that people notice. Okay, so I went ahead and I cut my foam 12 7/8 and then 12 12 because I already had 7/8 on the sides or on the top. That's basically how it works, and that's basically what it'll look like. What I'll do is the same process I did for the pan that it's sitting on. I'll do a nut, rib nut, and a bolt to hold that one together down here. Same process over again, but look at that. Made a strap at home, used foam, repurposed it. That looks as professional as anything you're gonna buy, anything you're gonna do. This is this week's project. It's done. That's the way the strap should look. That's the way everything should be. I think it looks good. I think it looks tight. I like how it fits. I like how secure everything's gonna be. I love that little bit of a foam feel, or that knurlment, or whatever you wanna call this texture. I like the way that looks against everything. It'll look good. That's it, y'all. I hope you learned something. You know what I'm gonna tell you. There ain't nothing to it but to do it. And do it right the first damn time. Thank you. Like, comment, subscribe.